Hello and welcome to another An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about the 1977 film The Creeper. And in this movie, a group of big city doctors go for a camping holiday in the wilderness. Yay, that'll be fun, right? Well, no. They find themselves the target of hostile attention from the locals. This starts pretty small. Somebody steals their shoes. But it escalates from there, shall we say. And as the men struggle to get away from their persecutors, they rapidly find out that the wilderness itself is just as dangerous as whoever is attacking them. It lacerates their feet, it pursues them with bee swarms, and it half drowns them in a river. And obviously, like the wilderness is not an active force doing these things, but just the conditions that they are in lead to these things. Can our heroes, using the term loosely, stay ahead of all the dangers besetting them and make it home safely? Well, that, of course, is what the movie is about. So this Canadian production is also known as Rituals. It's dropped into the public domain, so you can find it under the name Rituals on archive.org if you want to check it out. The question, of course, is, should you? So let's talk about should you. So first thing I want to bring up is, so it's filmed in 1976 for about 600,000 Canadian dollars, which is about 2.3 million US in today's terms. So we're not talking about a cushy, high-budget production. In fact, according to one of the stars, it was in fact a very physically demanding and challenging film to make. A single scene in which two characters drag a third upstream on a river took 5 days to film. That's some hard work. And as I already alluded to earlier, if there's one thing this film does right, it's make the wilderness look like a tough and uncompromising place to be. This is not a movie where a bunch of city slickers come to the countryside and learn to appreciate its wild beauty. They come and learn to appreciate how easily it could kill them instead. And for me, this is the most compelling and interesting element of the film, is seeing that man versus environment. And it is men versus environment because they're all guys. It's the 70s. But yes, man versus environment is, to me, the most interesting part of this film. The second thing that I need to talk about, and this is possible because of the film's age, possible because of the quality of the film stock, possible because of a poor quality transfer to digital format. Whatever the reason is, the film is very dark, making it very hard to see at times. Now there can be good reasons to set scenes in poor light. It can help create tension for one thing, and it can hide cheap or unconvincing effects for another. Unfortunately, in the case of this movie, it just tends to make things murky and difficult to follow, or at least that was my experience. I have just checked the archive.org version of the film, and it also appears to be quite dark. So whatever the reason is for the murkiness and the poor quality of the images sometimes, it's something you'll have to deal with if you watch this film by the easiest means of accessing it. So just be aware of that. If that's going to spoil your enjoyment of the film, it's a good reason to stay away in this case. And the last thing that I want to talk about, and you may have already picked up on this, but the core premise of this film, city slickers on a camping trip become the target of hostile locals, is very similar to that of a much better movie, or a much better known movie, sorry. We'll talk about whether, 1972's Deliverance. In fact, for the first half hour or so, my reaction to this movie was very much, this is Deliverance with worse acting. But that's not entirely fair. There are differences. Deliverance begins its conflict with the most confronting scene of the film, and then dwells on the question of whether the protagonist's fears and their violent actions as a result of those fears are justified self-defense, or are they the same savagery that they have just experienced. This film, as I mentioned earlier, instead begins with a relatively minor incident and escalates from there. It also focuses much more on the stresses of the men's escape trek being both physical and mental. I think if this movie had nailed the ending, I would have talked it up. Because during the part, as I mentioned earlier, during the part where it deals with the men's physical and mental deterioration in the face of their difficult journey, this is engaging stuff. Unfortunately, I do feel that The Creeper loses its way a bit in the final sort of quarter hour, 20 minutes, ultimately leaving Deliverance as the clearly better film. On the other hand, The Creeper / Rituals can be easily watched for free. Deliverance, I'm sure it's on streaming sites of some kind, but you will actually have to pay in some way to see it. So that's The Creeper. Interesting, but flawed. And that's probably a reasonable term to use to describe the movie I'm going to talk about next time, which is Robert Rodriguez's first English language feature, 1995's Desperado. So that's next time. In the meantime, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and catch you for the next one.